Hey guys, Gabe with Tight Lines. This video, we're going to learn how to go from spool to reel.
It's pulling in, we got a fish!
When it comes to reels and line type, everybody's got their own preference. And to be honest with you, it depends on the type of fishing you're doing. So if you're a casting reel kind of person or, I don't know, spinning reel, and, you know, if you like braided line or monoline or even fluorocarbon, it really depends on the type of fishing you're doing. Me personally, I usually use braided line and monofilament, so I'm going to show you how to spool them up on both. Before you spool up your reel, you want to make sure how much line you can actually put on. If you look at a spinning reel, on the bail, it tells you exactly the yardage and the pound test line. So if you've got 4-pound test, this particular one can use 100 yards. If you overdo it, you're going to end up getting rat's nest when you start to casting this thing, and it just becomes a big mess. So don't overspool them. If you don't have a spooling machine, I recommend attaching your reel to your rod. And this allows you to hold on to something when you're winding up the line so that it's not loose and kind of fumbling all over the place. The other thing I do is I take my spool and I take a pencil and just stick it through here. If you've got somebody to hold on to it to keep tension on it, that does help, but if you don't have it, I use a vise, and that's where we're going next. All right, here we are in the garage. I've got my vise, I've got a pencil locked in here, and then I take my spool of monofilament and just drop it down right on top of there. It gives it something to rotate on. What I did is I pulled out about 10 feet of line here, and I just need enough so that I can start at the end eyelets and feed the line all the way down here and then attach it to the spool. One of the things that a lot of people forget to do is actually open the bail. You gotta make sure the bail is open, otherwise you're not gonna be able to spool the line on. If you tie your mono right to the spool and then start to turn, nothing's gonna happen because you need this bail to rotate around, and that's what's actually gonna spool your line on. So make sure you got the bail all the way open. Next thing we gotta do is tie a knot in our line. So I pull about 6 inches line out, and what we're gonna do is just tie standard knot. Pull it through the middle. Sorry for my big fat farmer hands here. Now I don't want this knot to be very big, so I try and cinch it down so it's a little bit smaller than what you'd think. Maybe the circle is about the size of a dime or so. Now you're gonna have a long tag end on here, and we're gonna end up cutting that tag end off so that it doesn't get caught up in our spool. All right, once I've removed the tag end, I'm just left with this little loop. What we're gonna do is we're gonna push the line back through the middle of that loop and create a cinch knot. Just like so. Now, if I take this and I put, say, my finger through the middle of that, if I pull on that line, it's gonna pull it tight, and that's exactly what we want because we're gonna put that right here on the spool, and that way when the bail rotates, it's gonna tighten this line down and allow us to spool it up. So I take my little cinch nut, slide it down on my spool, I pull tight, and there it is. Now you need to make sure that you've got this in the right direction, because if you're pulled tight this way, the spool wants to go this way, and it's gonna keep loosening up as you try to reel it on. So make sure that you've got this in the right direction. So if it's going in this direction, that's how it's gonna tighten. That's the way you wanna go. If you have a casting reel, the process is similar but yet different. So I've got braided line here. We've got a guide that we've got to push the line into, and this is what's gonna help us spool it on. Now, if you look at a casting reel, it's different than a spinning reel because a casting reel is enclosed and a spinning reel has an open face bail. So how do we get a cinch knot on here? Well, luckily bait casters come apart. So if you pull your lock pin, you can slide your clutch plate off and pull the spool right off. So we're gonna take our line here and make a cinch knot just like we did with our spinning reel. Like so. Make it small, kind of like the other one. Then we're gonna have to cut our tag end off here because we don't want to get that twisted up in our line. Then we're gonna make a cinch knot just like we did with the monofilament. So you take your line, you push it back through the middle. Once you grab it, you make a cinch knot, just like before. Okay? Next thing we're going to do is put this back inside here because we got to slide our spool through it. There we go. So you got that, then open up your hole, slide it in, put your spool through, pull your line tight, and your cinch knot's locked in place. Put your side plate cover on for your, and you are ready to go. Now that you've got your line passed through the eyelets, you're attached to your reel, make sure the bail is closed. You're gonna pull this line tight and hold it about a foot above the reel. And this is just to keep tension on the line as you're reeling in. You have to make sure that the line goes on tight. If it goes on loose, you're gonna have issues with casting down the road. Once you're holding it tight, just keep tension on it as you start to reel in, spool it all the way on, and you'll be catching fish in no time. As you could tell, if you use casting reels or spinning reels, putting the line on is almost exactly the same. That's it for this video. If you enjoyed the content, please like and subscribe down below. And if you're going out fishing, as always, best of luck and tight lines.